Now, Kurt, you can do better than that. Hit it one more time, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Now I'm happy. How to turn any trumpet mouthpiece into a screamer. You'd like to know that, wouldn't you? Well, a couple of key points. In order to do this, you have to have uneven or lopsided asymmetric lips. That means one lip is a little bit larger, a little bit thicker, a little bit wider than the other. So if you look at my lips, let me get into the camera a little bit closer. Did you notice that the bottom lip is substantially larger? Not just a little bit. It is, let me see if I can pooch my lips out. It's substantially larger than the top lip. As a result, there's some inequalities happening there when you put it into a typical mouthpiece. Now look at that, mouthpiece is uniformly round and everything about it is symmetrical. There's nothing uneven. I can get it real close. You don't see anything too asymmetrical about it, right? What happens when your lips are asymmetrical, not symmetrical? Let me try to break it down if in case maybe you're in Italy watching this. Your lips are uneven. They are not the same length, width, thickness. They're not equal in size. You have a problem. There's a dilemma. Now some of you can overcome it, some of you can't. But even if you've overcome it, you can still sweeten the deal, baby, with what I'm going to tell you today and how to turn any trumpet mouthpiece into a screamer. Now let's look at this mouthpiece real carefully. I want to see if it's an old faded mouthpiece, and I want to see if you can figure out what kind of mouthpiece it is. Oh, there we go. Let me move it up closer to the camera here. You saw it was one of my least favorite mouthpieces, right? The Bach 7C. In fact, you probably have one. Whether you play on it or not, that's a different story, but you probably have one because the horn that you got when you were first starting was a 7C, or had a 7C with it. Or maybe you've just always played on a 7C and didn't know any better. Or maybe you have a band director or a private instructor who just slams her fist down and says you need to play on a 7C. So I want you to get all that garbage out of your head. That's all bunk, that's all garbage. You got to get that out of your head. That's number one. You should be playing on what mouthpiece, folks? No, not a 5C. Again, you should be playing on what kind of mouthpiece, folks? No, not a 3C. You guys aren't watching my channel very much, are you? Okay, let me hold your hand a little bit. You should be playing on a Bach 3E. 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 3 like Edward. 3E. 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 That's my go-to trumpet mouthpiece. If you have not invested a lot of money and time on getting a custom mouthpiece made for you, or you haven't been on a mouthpiece quest, you don't necessarily have to have a custom mouthpiece made for you, but maybe you're going to try several custom type mouthpieces that aren't the typical norm. For example, maybe Parduba, for example, isn't your typical mouthpiece. A Schilke 13A4A isn't your typical mouthpiece. I mean, people play it in marching band and lead, but it's not like your Bach 7C. So unless you have been on a mouthpiece quest and have tried all kinds of mouthpieces and found one that's just perfect for you, my go-to mouthpiece is the Bach 3E. It just tends to fix what ails you. You can play a little lead on it. You can use it for marching band. You can definitely play it in brass quintet. You can play it in a wind ensemble, orchestra, pep band. It just has a lot of uses, solo and ensemble. It really does have a lot of uses that you back off on a little bit, open up your aperture slightly, and you get a darker, bigger sound. You roll it a little bit, you push it, push that air and fire it up, and you get that brighter sound for jazz. It just is a great all-around mouthpiece. 3E. But you saw that I don't have my favorite mouthpiece, my go-to mouthpiece, the 3E. I got the one I don't like, the Bach 7C. And I got the Bach 7C to prove a point with this video. Now you're already saying, I can hear you right now. I can hear you. You know, I'm psychic and I also am omniscient, and I can hear a lot of people saying, Kurt, get on with the freaking video. I want to know how to make my mouthpiece into a screamer. Okay. First, you're going to need to pick up some epoxy that looks like this. They have all kinds of epoxy that you can get at your local hardware store, at the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's, even grocery stores. This one here I happened to pick up at Harbor Freight. It's not expensive, $4 or $5. So you want to get a tube of this. Now they have liquid epoxy and they have all kinds of different epoxy. This one has the consistency of Play-Doh, pretty much, until you start mixing it together, and then it can harden like steel. I've actually used this with emergency plumbing situations. I remember a leak under the sink in a rental house I used to own when I lived in Washington State. Middle of the night, had to go there and stop this leak. I took something similar to this, broke it open, wadded it up, made a little snake of a ring with this, put it around there and kept holding it, and this works even while wet. This stuff hardened, it stopped the leak until down to just a couple of drops, and I was able to sleep and call a plumber the next day. This stuff is pretty miraculous. So you might be thinking, well, Kurt, what has this got to do with me and becoming a screamer on my ordinary 7C mouthpiece, or whatever mouthpiece that you play? Because this is going to help even the score. It's going to help make your playing and your lips more symmetrical while turning your mouthpiece into an asymmetric mouthpiece. Let me say that again. Your lips will go into the mouthpiece more symmetrical when you've made your mouthpiece asymmetrical. You're going to make your mouthpiece a little uneven to balance out the unevenness that's in your lips. What will the end result look like? What you saw inside my mouthpiece is epoxy. Here's my custom Bob Reeves mouthpiece with the Neil Sanders rim on it. Still beautiful on the inside. Here's the one I've kind of effed up a little bit. Same deal, it's the same mouthpiece. Bob Reeves cut off the Neil Sanders 17S, put that top on this bottom. But you can see I've gone to work and suffered some abuse. But this mouthpiece here is a killer. It allows me to get some meat on the bone with triple G's and even a little bit above. It's pretty miraculous. So let me put both of them together. What this has that this one does not is a little bit of balancing for my top lip, which is a little bit thinner and not as big as the bottom lip. You wouldn't think it would make that much of a difference, but when you put both lips in, now both lips in go in quite equally compared to before with this one, where more of the bottom lip will get shoved in, even if I don't want it to, if that is just going to happen. So we're now creating a equal balance in the embouchure and a more equal vibration. And you're going to bring all that strength and power, and it's all going to sync up, and you are going to get higher notes. You're going to play louder. You're going to have more brilliance, and you're going to be more powerful when you do this. There are some negatives. I've noticed sometimes that the intonation here can be a little bit squirrely, especially the lower that you go. If I'm going to be playing something that does have quite a lot of stuff in the lower part of the staff or below the staff, I'll use this one. Or more lately, I've been using the big Bach 1. I don't know if you've noticed that. I have been pulling out the Bach 1, the largest of all Bach mouthpieces, more often than not. I really get a great sound in the middle to lower register on the Bach 1. So, but I'll use this one if I have to play something that goes all over the horn, the tessitura of the horn, but it does get down low. I will have to play this one just so I can be more in tune, and the notes are slotting a little bit better. Another negative, should you do this, you will notice your accuracy goes out the window a little bit. We'll say maybe 10%. You'll notice the slotting is not near as good. Okay? You just have to, there's the pros and cons. So you want to bury the band, you're probably going to do this. You want sizzle and fire and electricity and thunderbolts shooting out of your horn, you're going to probably want to do this. You want to be the man or the lady in your band, yes, you're going to probably want to do this. Now, if you're going to play an orchestra or anything really legit, orchestra, concert band, wind ensemble, brass quintet, for the most part, there'd be a couple of pieces you could use this type of mouthpiece for. Trumpet choir, brass choir, maybe even solos. Like I've done a lot of these at wedding receptions. You're not going to want to pull this out. You do sacrifice a little bit of tone quality as well. Your tone will not be as good. Once you have turned your mouthpiece into a screamer, it will not be as good as before. It'll be a little bit less. To throw a percentage, how about 5 or 10%? You're probably pushing 10%. Your tone quality will be about 10% less. But who's really going to notice when you're in big band or jazz band or a rock band or a fusion band or some commercial thing, and you're powering out D's, E's, F's, double G's, and A's? No one will notice the difference in the tone, and you won't either, because it's going to come out as pure power and electricity to anybody in the audience. When you take it down into the staff, that's when people will know. You will know it too. Other people will notice. If you're playing this, I notice it myself. Now, how do we do this? So hopefully that you found the epoxy, and maybe you pause this video, or you've already watched this video, but now you're coming back to it for the how-tos and how to put this all together. So let me open this baby up. Let me read the warning here. It does have a warning, and yours probably does too. If you swallow this, I mean, if you took a bite of this and swallowed it, you might die or get very, very sick. If you messed around with this and then didn't wash your hands and then you had to itch your eye, you're going to be sorry. You're probably going to have some eye problems. How bad, I don't know, but it's not going to be good. I would just not want to leave this on your skin while it's in its moist, non-hardened state. Once it's hard, in my opinion, you're good to go. I mean, I've been using this in this mouthpiece. I've been using the epoxy in my mouthpiece for about almost 10 years. And I go to the doctor at a regular basis. I don't have any problems. My lips haven't fallen off. Everything's normal. When I do the whole health spectrum panel, I guess they call it like a panel. So I mean, everything's tested, blood and everything, and I'm good to go. Once it's hard, you're good. Once it's in its moist state where it hasn't hardened, that's where you want to be careful. You don't want to be messing around on it too much until it actually turns hard. I've got it out of the package. It does have a pretty bad smell to it. So like I said, it looks like Play-Doh. So I'm going to pull a little bit out. Not like that much. Now sometimes you'll get an epoxy and it'll have a gray color on the outside, and then there'll be another part that's a whiter or a lighter tan color, two different colors, and that's fine too. And then when you mix them together, they become one color. This one I guess works once it hits air. So I can already feel it's getting tacky now that it's hit air. I can feel like there's a chemical reaction happening. What you want to do is get this into about the size of a little pea. Like that. And then it's just like when you were playing with Play-Doh as a kid, right? Okay, now here's my little pea-size epoxy. Here's the mouthpiece. I'm going to put it in. Now it's hard to do this without really looking at it, but I'm going to put it in on the mouthpiece here. And put it on the edge. Now I have to do this kind of on my own to actually look at it. Just so you know, I had to take a little bit of piece off of that. It was too much. All right, let me let you take a look at it now, and I'm still going to get a little bit more out of near the hole, the throat. Hopefully you can see what's going on there. Now notice it goes down a little bit too far near the hole or the throat. I'm going to try to remove that out with a pen now. Or the pen cap. And if you're more high-tech, you can probably figure it out. I'm just going to take this and scoop a little bit out. And I'll take a look. You can see that I've got it further away from the hole. Now I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, so I'm going to have to come back, and after this is dried and hardened up a little bit, I'll come back later and we'll proceed further with turning your trumpet mouthpiece into a screamer. Alright, I am back. It's been about 4 hours, and I would say this is probably somewhere around 60 or 65% cured, meaning it's not quite there. It needs to likely go a good 10-12 hours, maybe even up to 20 hours, you know, like a full day, and let it totally cure and harden. But just to go ahead and finish up this tutorial, and I got to move on to other projects, I want to come in and go ahead and give my final thoughts on this, let you see how it looked. You can see that the darker gray is now turned a little bit lighter, and I suspect this will become even lighter than what you see here. I would like to leave you with a couple of thoughts for consideration. And then after that, I'm going to leave you with a final word, and my final word will be me playing on the new improved Box 7C Screamer trumpet mouthpiece. A couple of thoughts. You're likely going to have to sand this down a little bit. You have to put this in at a certain amount because you have to have room to work with. In other words, you can't start off with too small amount, because then what are you going to do? If it's not enough, then you're going to have to go back and repeat this whole damn process all over again, and it's one big long waiting game. So let me save you the time. Just put in a little bit more like you saw me do in the beginning, and then you're going to play on it. Now a con or a negative to turning your mouthpiece into a screamer is the potential destruction of your existing mouthpiece. Not a total destruction, because of course it's going to be a screamer mouthpiece, But let me give you the before and after of my mouthpieces. These are identical mouthpieces. Bob Reeves cut them up for me. They have the Neil Sander 17S top and then the Bob Reeves 42SV bottoms. That's 42 S like Sam, V like Victor, and I'll show you that right now. You might be thinking to yourself, wow, Kurt, one of your mouthpieces is really effed up. The other one still looks somewhat like new. What happened? Well, exactly what I alluded to. When you turn your mouthpiece into a screamer, you're going to have to do some fine tuning and adjustments. What you saw in the 7C is probably a little too much for most folks. You're going to have to shave that down a little bit with some super duper fine sandpaper. I mean, it's got to be extra fine or extra fine steel wool. And what you're going to do is you're going to rub on the epoxy, get some of it off, make sure you wash it off with water, rinse off your lips, don't swallow any, and then play on it. And you're going to keep going back and forth until you find that magical sweet spot. That sweet spot when you play and bam! If you're a high C player, now you're a high E or a high F player. I shite you not. It will be that significant. If you're a pimply faced, gangly little 14-year-old 9th grade girl or boy, and all you could muster up was a G right above the staff and you're shaking and veins are popping out of your head, you will be able to nail the you know what out of a high C after you've turned your mouthpiece into a screamer. But it comes at some destruction of your mouthpiece. You can see that there's plenty of scratches on there. I pretty much took the hide off of the mouthpiece. And the reason that happened is because all the sanding. You know, you take some sandpaper and you keep messing around in there. Well, unfortunately, that sandpaper is hitting other parts of the mouthpiece. Now, my latest thing that I did when I put some finishing touches on this about 1.5 years ago is I got one of those nail salon Dremel type drills. You know, it's not a Dremel, but it's, if you're a female, you've been into a nail salon, you've seen that they use this little tool. Kind of looks like a handheld straight drill, like a Dremel, and they use it to smooth out your toes and your nails and, you know, smooth them down, whatever. Well, I got one of those off of Amazon and put some fine abrasive wheel on it and just and did a little bit of that, and it got it even more close to what I wanted. But it does come at a cost. I mean, scratched it up and took off some of the finish. The whole moral of the story about the destruction is you're not going to want to even think about turning your $400 Monet gold Prana mouthpiece into a screamer unless you're absolutely rich and you don't mind having a $400 mouthpiece end up looking like this. When it used to look this good. So if you got the big bucks and the cha-ching and you don't mind taking a mouthpiece that's maybe expensive and chomping it up a little bit because you want to get an extra 3 notes in your range, then by all means you've been warned, and if you're okay with it, good. Another thing, I am a teacher. I've taught so many students. There are a couple little shortcuts, but in reality, there's no big shortcut to success. you're gonna have to still practice. You're gonna still have to take lessons. You're gonna still have to use these and listen to lots of music, lots of players. You're not just gonna be able to turn your mouthpiece into a screamer and have life be easy street for the next 80 years or however long you're going to live. You're going to have to pay your dues. You're going to have to put in the time for practice. You need to be spending time with somebody who knows how to teach this instrument and somebody who knows how to play, preferably who can do both. I would love to have you work with me. I have a proven system. I have several proven systems, especially for upper register and endurance. This is a cool little gimmick, turning your mouthpiece into a screamer. It does work. And I've already mentioned some of the cons. You might notice some intonation problems, some accuracy problems, a little bit of squirreliness. There is some destruction to your mouthpiece. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing more satisfying than pulling up your horn and just knocking the you-know-what out of a high F or a double G when just the night before when you went to sleep, you couldn't even get a high D out. I mean, veins were bulging, your face turned beet red just to get a high C or high D out. And with this little gimmick, you can hit out and nail an F, a double G. You can't beat that feeling. It is an amazing feeling to feel that potent, that strong, that powerful, that much in control of your destination on this instrument. And I want to plug my new 2019 revised upper register course. If you want long-lasting success on this instrument, you got to take that course. I say it, but a ton of other successful graduates also say it. This is not bull. This is the real deal, the holy grail, the #1 rated course for brass players to improve their upper register and their endurance. TrumpetSizzle.com is where you can find a lot of my stuff. By the way, you went through this whole video, maybe you stopped and paused and actually now you're looking down at your mouthpiece and you're getting ready to try it. Did you find some value here? If you did, well, I appreciate a nice little like. Maybe leave a comment. Did it work out for you? Let others know. Did you have a glitch or a problem? Let others know. Do you still have questions about this process and need my help? Leave a comment and maybe we can get involved in a lesson or two and I'll be glad to work with you. Alright, so it's been my pleasure showing you this amazing trumpet tip to increase your range almost overnight. It really has been my pleasure. And remember, we talked about taking your plain old vanilla trumpet mouthpiece and turning it into a screamer. You go to bed, a high C player. You wake up the next day and you got Fs all day long. That's Fs above high C or even double Gs. I mean, you can't even put a price tag on that. I mean, it's just an amazing feeling to feel that powerful and that in control of your destiny on this instrument. I'll leave you with a final word, and my final word won't be coming from my words. My final words will be spoken through my instrument, showcasing my 7C mouthpiece that has been turned into a screamer.